You're listening to the DCAU Review, hosted by Cal and Liam. Streaming on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and at DCAUreview.com. Now, here's today's episode.
Welcome, everybody, to bonus episode number 13 of the DCAU Review. I am one of your two hosts. With me is our other host, my good brother, good friend, and the gentleman that runs our Twitter page. It's Liam. Liam, welcome back to another week of discussing Batman: The Adventures Continue right here on our bonus episode.
Absolutely. Excited to be back. We have reached the sort of finale. We'll get to that at the end, but we have reached the end of our journey for the time being with these final two digital chapters, chapters 13 and 14, which are the digital chapters they make up. That's parts 5 and 6 of the Red Sun Rising storyline. And when they come out in physical form, those two chapters will be put into one, and that will be issue 7 of Batman: The Adventures Continue.
Bravo, my friend. Way to keep that all straight there, because that was it's always a challenge to keep everything straight with this. But yeah, so we are finally here, Liam. It has been a long, strange journey and something that we've certainly enjoyed. We've had quite an interesting time getting here, and some actually additionally exciting news about the potential future of the DCAU, especially in comic book form here. So we can jump right into our story sort of today and give our general thoughts on what we felt about these two digital chapters together. So with these two chapters, we pick up right where we left off with our last issue, which if you haven't listened to our last bonus episode, or if you haven't read that issue, I don't know why you're listening to this, but stop what you're doing and either go read them or start at the beginning and listen to all of the bonus episodes, which you can hear in the archive at DCAUreview.com or on your favorite podcast app. Liam, we picked this one up where we left off with our last issue. So Jason Todd has kidnapped Tim Drake and taken him hostage. And beginning of the next issue, it's sort of we see Jason interacting with Dr. Leslie Tompkins for the first time since their last interaction, where she expressed to Bruce that she certainly had some worries and concerns about his future and putting him in harm's way. And so let's break this thing down, shall we?
Absolutely, yeah. Like you said, it picks up right where the last chapter / issue ended, with Jason kidnapping Tim, the direct fallout of, yes, as you mentioned, Leslie Tompkins seeing Jason for the first time since he's returned. They have some dialogue about that, and he sort of makes allusions to what his plans are, as well as stealing some chemicals from her, which we find out later, I guess, are very powerful sedatives, which he uses to capture all of our major players here. But yeah, from there, there's it's sort of this dueling scene. We have Batman, Batgirl, and Alfred sort of dealing with the fallout of Jason coming into the Batcave and taking Tim. Batman's blaming himself. He's frustrated. He doesn't know where to go exactly. And on the other hand, you also have the Joker, who of course was attacked by Jason in the previous issue, also seemingly pretty worried about what's going on. So worried, in fact, that he goes to the Iceberg Lounge and asks the Penguin for help. And I mean, do we just want to blow the roof off the just hit the Steve Austin music here?
Yeah.
Mr. Wing returns triumphantly. #feel the bird.
That's right.
And we get to see a big knockdown, drag-out fight between the Joker's new henchman, Straight Man, and the subordinate, as he is called by the Penguin here, Mr. Wing. And sadly, Cal, we actually get to learn what Mr. Wing's true origin is. And apparently he's not from a secret society of highly evolved birds who kicked him out for being too radical. He's just an experiment from one Emil Dorian, the mad scientist from the Batman the Animated Series episode Tiger Tiger.
Yeah, so a little bit of disappointment that they didn't take our cues, and Mr. Dini decided to go in a different direction. Now, of course, we do know that that from time to time canon has changed. So who's to say this is permanent canon? I don't know, but at least for now, yes, we see that they took his origin in a bit of a different direction here, at least tying it to this Emil Dorian, who appears to be one of Paul Dini's favorite go-to characters, it seems. I believe he used him in, or at least referenced him in Harley Loves Joker, which was, a miniseries written by Paul Dini that is potentially loosely canon DCAU content. We're not sure, but possibly. As a lot of this stuff seems to be in question. So Emil Dorian making an appearance, and of course we talked about him on the episode at Tiger Tiger, which we recently reviewed just a few months back. You can check it out in the archives at DCAUreview.com if you're not familiar with that character, want to know all about him. But basically he was a fan of sort of splicing animal DNA into human DNA. So but at other times he just sort of, I don't know, he did the reverse. He sort of spliced or did like human DNA into animals. So it's kind of unclear as to which one this is.
Yeah, they kind of, we haven't exactly learned the full origins yet. We just know that Mr. Wing is apparently another of his experiments. But yeah, I do think that leaves a little wiggle room. We still have much to learn about Mr. Wing, and hopefully we will learn more as the years go on here. But yeah, I mean, I like that little nod. It's fun. Now, obviously, in the DCAU continuity in Justice League, it's implied that Dr. Milo from the Moon of the Wolf episode is actually more sort of directly responsible for the origins of splicing as we see it in Batman Beyond. But obviously, I guess we can say that anybody who is like half animal, half man had a hand in this. Kirk Langstrom, this Dr. Dorian, and Milo as well. So we get to see another little, I guess this is an early splicer, which does beg the question, I feel like, which is that if this already exists in regular Batman time, why is it like such a big scandal when it's happening in 30 years later in Batman Beyond?
Yeah, that is kind of an odd choice to make this so normal. It's not as if Man-Bat was the only time this sort of human-animal hybrid occurred. Certainly we have, I guess you could say that maybe because Dr. Dorian was on his own sort of island and was more, some of those things were kept more under wraps on sort of his own. I don't know. It seemed to be more urban legend in that case. He was a little more self-contained in his own space. That maybe that didn't get out. The Moon of the Wolf thing, certainly that was a little bit more prominent, I guess. But even at the end of that episode, it was sort of ambiguous as to what happened to the Wolfman, whose name escapes me at this point. But I guess maybe it could be chalked up to modern day sort of tabloid gossip about this stuff. And then when it's becoming more mainstream and more prominent, where people are electing to do it as opposed to these sort of rumored creatures that are being unleashed on Gotham, it's more of a shock that way. I guess that could be explained that way.
Yeah, I mean that works fine. It's obviously we're just kind of nitpicking here, but it is interesting and fun to obviously to see one of the breakout character from Batman: The Adventures Continue, Mr. Wing, return here. But yeah, in the aftermath of his knockdown drag-out fight with the Straight Man, the Red Hood shows up and knocks out Joker and kidnaps him. And then that's sort of where Digital Chapter 13, Part 5 ends, is he also is able to knock out Batgirl and Batman and take him. And that's sort of the end of the chapter, is all of the pieces are finally coming together for this final dramatic confrontation with Batman, the Red Hood, the Joker, and the newest Robin all together this time. So they lay out the pieces pretty well. I think it's a pretty good cliffhanger. Obviously, if you read this in the physical form, it won't really be a cliffhanger. It'll just be halfway through the book. But I do like the way that Jason sort of gets everybody on edge and then sort of picks them off one by one. I think showing kind of what a sort of master strategist and how ruthless he's become is that's good stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this was the best showcase sort of for that. I don't know. He still comes off, I think, in some of his dialogue, especially his dialogue with Leslie, is just kind of like this disrespectful, spoiled brat, as opposed to sort of like a vengeful sort of righteous vengeance that sometimes it feels like he comes off with, because he's that anti-hero type in the standard continuity. It seems like they more or less want there to be no ambiguity about how you should feel with Jason, that he is a straight up villain, that he's not, there's no sort of gray area here, that he's bad. He was a bad Robin. He rebelled against Batman, and now he's trying to kill Robin or make Batman kill the Joker, one or the other. So I guess in that way, we had asked for a sort of we've been craving sort of a deviation from the original Red Hood storyline, and while we didn't get that maybe in his origin, they are certainly not afraid to make him a straight up villain, as opposed to that anti-hero that he sort of evolved into in the standard books.
For sure, yeah, and I think that maybe is why it's jarring for people who have seen all of that character development. But you have to remember that first Under the Red Hood story, he was pretty much a straight up antagonist. He was also focused kind of in like the side story of attacking like organized crime in general to get Batman's attention. But it seemed like at the end of that book, all of that was sort of just in service of getting himself, Batman, and the Joker into a room together so he could sort of play out this dramatic final confrontation. And I think that's kind of more on display here. He's more single-minded. We don't see him really any sort of vigilantism in his repertoire here. He's all we've seen of him really is that he's been sort of stalking the Bat family, and then now that he finally comes to his plan has finally come together, he executes his trap and is able to capture all of them fairly easily. So yeah, he's much more single-minded and much more aggressive in achieving his goals. There it doesn't really seem to be this. Obviously, we see some of that in the flashbacks in previous chapters of his ideas of that Batman doesn't go far enough when it comes to stopping crime. But as far as since he's come back as the Red Hood, we don't really see any of that. It seems that he's really quite single-minded and is really just after the revenge and sort of setting up this scenario, as you mentioned, where he wants Batman to either kill the Joker or Jason will kill Robin. So yeah, it's definitely a little bit of a different take on that Jason character since his comeback.
For sure. All right, William. Well, then we pick up in the next chapter here, which will simply just be, as you said, the second half of the final issue here of Batman: The Adventures Continue, Red Sun Rising Part 6. We pick up with Batman sort of coming out of a dream after he's clearly been knocked out, and he's come face to face with the Joker. He's in this sewer lair that may or may not be Killer Croc. I guess they said it was one of Killer Croc's old lairs or something like that. So Robin is in this tank that's slowly filling up with water, and then you have the Joker who's chained up, and Jason arrives shortly thereafter. And he has decided that he is going to make Batman choose between killing the Joker with a crowbar or allowing Robin to drown. And Batman's not having any of that.
Yeah, I actually really love the way this sort of take on this final confrontation is done, because I thought that was one of the few flaws in that Under the Hood storyline in the books, and I guess it plays out pretty similarly in the movies. But the idea that when Jason tosses Batman the gun in the book and is like, "You got to shoot the Joker or shoot me," I was like, well, why would he? Like, he's obviously not going to shoot Jason. Like, it just never felt like that was a choice. Whereas having Tim be in direct danger here, I feel like there's more of a choice to be made. Whereas for Batman, like more of a personal choice where that vow to never kill can be more strongly tested, I guess. In that, not only what is it kill the Joker, it's not just kill the Joker or I'll kill the Joker, it's kill the Joker or I'll kill your new son. So I think that adds a lot of drama to it. I like the way that final confrontation is set up, and the Joker's sort of stubborn refusal to play along, as well as Batman's, where Batman won't kill the Joker in the end, and also sort of I love the sort of like clever visual or a verbal cue he gives to Robin as he sort of is telling Robin how to break out of this water tank that's filling up. And then in the midst of that, it sort of gives the Joker a chance to monologue. I thought this was obviously he's been sort of a minor character so far, but this is some real good Joker stuff. I know you mentioned that off the air to me too, but this felt like the most like authentically Mark Hamill's Joker, or the Paul Dini Bruce Timm Joker that we've gotten in this book so far. Is that sort of monologue where he's talking about how boring it is, the idea that he would just try to pit Joker and Batman, that his end goal would just be to try to get them to kill each other, and how there would be no theater or no joy in that way of going about it. So even the Joker refuses to kill Batman, even when the Red Hood shoots him and then throws a gun to him and tells him to kill Batman, Joker really just won't play along in this way.
Yeah, I thought that was that was very true to that character. I appreciate that he always relates it back to comedy also. He says there's no comedy in trying to pit me and Batman, forcing me and Batman to fight. Like that's not what this is about. He doesn't get joy out of being forced to do something. He enjoys the torture aspect. And I actually do appreciate the fact that Joker brings up that, hey, at the end of the day, Batman has to make a choice here. He knows that Batman's not going to kill him. So he said what the end goal is, that he's going to take you down, take you in. You're going to be unmasked. Your identity is going to be exposed, which is going to lead to Batman's identity being exposed, which is going to, be the ultimate goal and humiliation that the Joker was hoping for. And he didn't even have to do anything. He gets to sit back and watch it all. This guy basically, this second Robin that he almost killed ultimately does the work for him. So I thought that was a neat little caveat there, and a neat little turn of the story. And ultimately the Joker seems to have quite some joy in learning that this plan that he had devised all along, or had always hoped for, ultimately is going to play out in a way that ends up being quite the punchline.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a really good way of looking at it. I love just the bit at first when Jason sort of reveals himself as, I was the second Robin, and he's telling Batman and the Joker how he escaped the explosion originally, and the Joker's like, wow, that's amazing. I always wondered what happened to you. And Red Hood says, really? And Joker just says, no. Like the idea that, and I think that's also a very good like Joker thing, is like, even in this DCAU continuity or in the proper continuity, the death of the second Robin is like one of the big tentpole moments in the history of Batman comics. But for Joker, it was Tuesday. Like, it's just a thing he did. Like, it doesn't register to him as like this big moment in his career. Like, it's just another thing he did to mess with Batman. Like, and I think that's a pretty great Joker thing too.
I agree. And I think it's somewhat meta. It almost is a commentary. I mean, we've talked about, as we've gone through here, it's like, man, how do you how in the world do we not know that there was a second Robin? How do we not know this story? If, and this is obviously before knowing all the details, but if this played out in any way similar to the way that the Jason Todd story played out in the standard DC continuity, how on earth do we not know about this? How is this not something that the Joker is constantly throwing in Batman's face? And that's, like you said, it's just because it was just another day. It was another chaotic experience that he caused, that really it was just another flash in the pan. It was just something else, just another day at the office.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So I love that interaction. And as we said there, it's the Joker is sort of always a little bit in control, even when it seems like he's that Red Hood or even Batman in this case have him dead to rights. And of course he put a homing beacon in Straight Man's brain. They mention in chapter 13 that he had performed some sort of brain surgery on him, and apparently had put a homing beacon in there and kept a device on him that would allow Straight Man to find him. And that's sort of where we get our Deus Ex Machina moment as sort of this really tense standoff that's then broken by Straight Man bursting in and sort of knocking Red Hood around. And
so I gotta ask you,
there we get to yeah. Go ahead.
I gotta ask you, based on what we know about the Joker now, can we like unequivocally say that he is the smartest person in the DCAU? Like, is he smarter than Lex Luthor? Because, going back to a lot of the schemes and scams that this guy has come up with, and ultimately, like, if he was able to perform, and he is the one who claims this, so he doesn't say that he, forced a brain surgeon to do it. He says that he reprogrammed this Captain Whitehouse, obviously a sort of a Captain America archetype. So he claims this and claims that he placed a homing beacon in his brain. He's literally a brain surgeon.
And it's functional too, because obviously Straight Man's able to locate him even, miles underground in this old Killer Croc lair that Jason is holed up in with everyone. So,
and we're not talking about the type of surgery that like Heath Ledger's Joker does in The Dark Knight, where he's like just sort of haphazardly installs a phone into somebody's stomach. This is a legitimate successful brain surgery.
Yeah, I mean that he's gone way up the list of the smartest men in the DCAU. If this is in fact the case, yeah, it's probably like him and Brainiac now, right? Like
it's like Brainiac, Joker, Luthor, maybe.
I think Darkseid might be smarter than Luthor.
Okay, so Brainiac, Joker, Darkseid, Luthor. Give us your top 5 smartest people.
Yeah, Rod in there somewhere, maybe.
Yes, could very well be. I mean, obviously, Batman is a formidable brain also, but I don't ever remember him performing brain surgery on somebody.
No, not successfully anyway. But yeah, so that is a fun, weird little wrinkle to this story, is him talking about having apparently, taken this sort of, as you mentioned, stand-in for a Captain America type super soldier, and not only turning them into this obedient servant, but installing some sort of tracking device in his head that would allow him to find the Joker. But yeah, that sort of leads to our big final action beats as Robin frees himself, knocks out the Joker, and tosses Batman a crowbar to help him fight off Straight Man. It's interesting. It's a really interesting final little bit there. You have sort of the ending is as everyone's fighting and the room is flooding, and there's also mention that these pipes, whatever they're underneath, are possible to explode. So there's a lot going on all at once in this final bit here. But I want to point out the most important thing to me in this final chapter is that we find out that the Red Hood's mask is not a helmet. It's a mask.
Yes, it is. It's not. It that's also apparently canon.
That's just we'll get more into the visuals of the issue in a little bit here, but yes. So yeah, from there that's sort of have the ending. Batman still tries to reach out and save Jason, but Jason doesn't allow himself to be saved. Batgirl shows up in the nick of time to give Robin and Batman a way out. And then we get our little epilogue to this story, which is that not only did Jason survive, but he was picked up by the returning Slade Wilson and Sonny. And apparently, whoever Slade is working with, perhaps Lex Luthor, who we saw him working with earlier in this series, is very interested in Jason's skill set. And Deathstroke mentions that the idea of creating a new family is sort of this seems to be like an anti-Bat family with Deathstroke, Sonny, and the Red Hood potentially going against Robin, Batgirl, and Batman in a future story, perhaps.
Yeah, I think that it seems. I mean, we've kind of been speculating on this, especially when we knew that it seemed like there were a lot of elements that maybe had originally been planned for this series. Especially, I mean, obviously we're not privy to what the original plans were, but we were at least, it seemed to be alluded to that we were going to have each and every one of these action figures that were the ultimately that the comic was based on they were going to be used to sort of promote this comic book series, and vice versa. So we had mentioned a couple issues back that with only one or two issues left, there were a lot of characters that they had introduced or shown that were being left on the table. And we were curious about this, how are they going to jam all these characters in there?
Right.
Are they just going to completely ignore them with DC direct shuttering and maybe some of these figures never being produced? Or are they just going to pretend like they didn't exist? What is going on is basically kind of where we left. And this ending, even though it does say end at the bottom of it in that final panel, certainly leaves the door open for the possibility for the adventures continue.
I like that. But yeah, no, that definitely was, it was not as we sort of talked about at the end of our last bonus episode where we discussed this, episode 11. We mentioned that, like, wow, they've really got a lot of loose ends to tie up, especially with this Jason character, because he's never mentioned in Justice League or Batman Beyond or any of these other shows. So like they have to have some sort of like big definitive end to this version of the Red Hood Jason character, and that just doesn't happen. They leave it very open-ended, and like we said, hopefully that means there is more stories to come focusing on this character, but ending it with this sort of new alliance forming between Deathstroke and the Red Hood and perhaps other villains that we may have previously seen. I am curious as to what that certainly makes your mind wander and race when it comes to thinking about what could be next for if there were, say, a sequel series to this, or just a direct continuation and keeping the numbering and everything.
Yes, I think it's going to be very interesting. What is this new family that Deathstroke is talking about? Who else could be involved here? Where else is Deathstroke involved? Could this possibly lead to another animated property where we get an actual animated movie out of this? That would be interesting if they are able to sort of use the momentum from this series and certainly the excitement around HBO Max and everything that's happening there. Are they able to sort of angle this into a feature-length direct-to-video film? I mean, that's what we would hope for. That's what one could ask for. But I guess we, as you like to say, we have to file that under "we'll see" at this point.
Absolutely. But yes, it's a very, very interesting ending. Like I said, I do think they attempt to give you some closure on the Batman side of things. He and Robin and Batgirl sort of have this final conversation after Jason is seemingly lost, and Batman says he feels like he he made so many mistakes with Jason, and he's sort of scared that he's made them all. Made the same mistakes over again with Tim and Barbara, and they sort of reassure him that one, despite the mistakes he may have made, that he never gave up on Jason, even in those final moments he was trying to save him. But two, that they're, whatever happens, they chose this life. He didn't force any of them into it, and that they're sticking around. So I think that is, they give you a little bit of closure on that side. But yes, obviously this little epilogue with Deathstroke and Sonny and Jason would certainly whet your appetite for at least another 7 issues or so.
At least, yes. This would be that would be the pleasant surprise. But I guess, Liam, that's a good segue into talking about the very exciting news that ended up being announced just a day or so after we got the final quote unquote issue from this series, and that is that the adventures will continue at least for one additional issue, as DC Comics announced a holiday special tied in, and interestingly enough, it's not going to be numbered as like an annual or sometimes as they do, or a special, a one-off, one of one issue, but this would be technically issue number 8.
Yeah, it's funny because if you look at the solicitations for this issue that we're reviewing, as we said, it'll make up the physical 7th issue. It said, in big bold letters, final issue 7 of 7. So we all sort of rightfully assumed that was the end. But yes, we found out that coming in January, we will get this sort of what appears to be a unrelated sort of one-off story involving Harley and Ivy committing some sort of holiday-related crimes, which sounds like a lot of fun. Whether or not there will be any teases for what could be coming down the pipeline or what could be coming next, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, we'll have a few months off here, but we do know we have at least one more adventure in the DCAU coming our way. So that's that was a different comic book series. But no, that's definitely really exciting. I guess that's that numbering is very curious. I agree, just because again, 7 had already been solicited as the final issue. It was 7 of 7, and then this new one was announced and it says 8 of 8 on it. So we will see what comes from that. But yeah, either way, like we've said with every single one of these issues, whether it's some big status quo altering change, like introducing a second Robin and Firefly appearing before the new Batman adventures, things like that, or minor things like just another fun Harley and Ivy tale penned by Alan Burnett and Paul Dini, we're always game for a little bit more and getting a chance to live in this universe for a little bit more time. So definitely very excited for that.
Absolutely. So I think it's time to talk just at least a little bit here, Liam, about our other favorite thing to discuss when we go through these issues, and that is the artwork for these two digital chapters here. What did you think of the artwork for these final 2? Well, I guess ultimately not final 2, but these 2 issues, or these 2 chapters here. Of course, Ty Templeton again providing the artwork, and best friend of the show, Monica Kubina, doing the inking here. What were your thoughts on the artwork?
Yeah, I think there's some really, really great stuff. I love the look of Jason's lair. It's mentioned that it's a former Killer Croc lair. It's an interesting place because on paper, if you just hear, their final battle's in a sewer, that sounds kind of boring, but they managed to make it pretty exciting. And I think Ty Templeton and Monica do a great job.
I said inking, by the way, but I meant colorist. Let me correct myself there. Inking is its own thing.
That's right. I believe Ty actually did the inks on this, and yes, Monica does the colors. But yeah, I love the fight as mentioned between Straight Man and Mr. Wing. It's this big, over the top, super powered. They're just wrecking the place, and I love the Red Hood's grenade that has eyes on it. And him dropping the chandelier onto Straight Man. I thought that was pretty clever. And I love, and we should always mention, I think we've made a point, especially you have, Cal, of highlighting these, especially on our Instagram. You can follow us at DCAU Review on Instagram. But the title cards that we get for these digital chapters by Randy Mayer, both the one for Part 5, Red Sun Rising Part 5, which is sort of an image of Batman and Batgirl sort of on the detective hunt as the Penguin looks on. And then I think one of the single best ones he did, that being for the final Part 6, of it's just Batman, the Red Hood, and Joker sort of standing looking at each other in this sort of Mexican standoff pose with the title of the story below their feet. I love the way that one is laid out, and it's really, we've mentioned it a lot, but just the whole team on these books did such a great job, especially from a visual standpoint. And I think, like I said, I really enjoy the ending there of Tim freeing himself from the water tank, and then that sort of brief fight between Batman. I love the sort of the quick nature. They do a lot of like panels on top of panels here, but of Tim grabbing the crowbar, knocking out the Joker, tossing it to Batman so Batman can hit Straight Man with it. Just a nice little like quick bit of sequential action, and showing how you can kind of feel like you're watching things move even when they're static images. I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, I agree. I think this continues to be really, really great. There's a lot of great headshots up close, like face shots, as you mentioned, sort of in that last in the second chapter. The Joker is very expressive, of course, using the Justice League Unlimited slash Return of the Joker look for Joker was certainly the way to go, and certainly I think that he looked true to character throughout it. And there's a couple of really striking panels. There's a panel where Red Hood, when he whips out a pistol to shoot the Joker, so there's a shot where he, it's sort of at the barrel looking back at the Red Hood as he sort of stretches out and aims it, and then there's a reaction shot of the Joker actually being hit, and there's sort of blood spraying, which still is a little bit striking. Recognizing we talk about it, we're always quick to point it out if there is blood in the DCAU, because it's so few and far between. But I thought it was very, very interesting that, and it was a great shot. It was done really, really well. But there's a lot of expressive up close headshots in that final chapter that I think really do a great job of showing the intensity and certainly the just sort of the impact that is going on here, and the individual characters, cutting between the Joker and the Red Hood and Batman. And there's another panel where after Red Hood is trying to force the Joker right before he hits the homing beacon, there's a shot where Red Hood is pointing a gun sort of haphazardly at the Joker's head, and the Joker has his finger pointed. And the very next panel, Joker's being very expressive, and Red Hood's still pointing the gun in his head. And that's when the third panel pops up, and he's holding this homing beacon that he remembers that he had, that allows Straight Man to bust in and sort of save his bacon. But just really, really great. That very next panel, as Straight Man breaks in, it's a bit of a splash page, pun intended. You can look that up. A splash page. It works.
A literal splash page.
But yeah, it really, really great. We've done nothing but praise, as well we should, the visuals and certainly the artwork from this. And I think these last two chapters certainly lived up to the hype. Of course, bringing back Mr. Wing was certainly an added bonus, because we get to use different visual. We only had a handful of images to use for our memes, and now that meme catalog can certainly begin to grow.
And that's really what the most important part of all of this was. We're just mining it for more Mr. Wing memes. But no, yeah, it's great. Like I said, I love that whole final confrontation. The shot of Robin sort of on the ladder shooting the grappling hook down. Batman catches it as Jason is literally caught by the crowbar, which is sort of lodged itself into the wall, and he's literally hanging by the crowbar. And as we said, he removes his, apparently it's just like it's like a ski mask, and he actually looks a little more, they shows like they visualize a little bit more of the scarring in this issue, whereas before it had kind of just been like a mark under his eye and obviously the white hair. And that final shot where he takes off the red mask, and you see a lot more of the marks and bumps and definition sort of this of sort of the beating he took. And yeah, I really think they do that. And as you mentioned, that scene where he's sort of pointing the gun at the Joker, you have these super expressive Joker faces, sort of contrasted by this sort of obviously he doesn't have a mouth or his eyes don't really move in the mask, so this sort of constant straight expression of the Red Hood face, sort of contrasted by the over the top Joker expressions. There's some really, really great stuff here. And like I said, even that those final couple images as Jason sort of removes himself from the crowbar and falls in, and we see this shocked Batman reaction, and then Batgirl sort of swooping in at the last second to help make the rescue, and them sort of talking to each other on the docks afterwards. There's just some really good stuff in here, and I definitely think we've said it in every chapter, every bonus episode we've done that's focused on it. But yeah, Ty Templeton and Monica Kubina's work here has absolutely been the highlight, and that's not a slight against the writing or editing or lettering or anything else, but I think by far the most fun for me has just been to see, again, to get to live in this DCAU style a little bit longer, and to see all of some of these new characters brought to life in that style has just been so much fun. And these last couple chapters were no exception to that.
Yeah, I think that final bit there where Jason is hung up by the crowbar and basically it pulls at Ra's al Ghul and refuses to accept Batman's hand ultimately, mm-hmm. or certainly, I guess ultimately he's sort of rejecting help from Batman and Robin. So there's certainly still seems to be some animosity there, or some dislike. But
we have the line of "Save the Robin who needs you" as he drops himself into the water. So whether that's him being sort of just resigned and I kind of took that as he's telling Bruce, like, I'm too far gone and there's no saving me.
Right.
So just let me go. More than like him being resentful of Bruce or Tim in that moment.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it could be read either way, but I tend, based on the lines that he kind of says beforehand, it seems that way. But that shocked look of Batman, great coloring there, great drawing, that just the classic. And you can, even with the line there, he just says Jason, like in my head, everything about that scene just screams Batman the Animated Series, where you can hear Kevin Conroy screaming it. It looks like a still panel from from what you would think it would show up in a cartoon. So I think that's been our takeaway from this whole series, as you mentioned, and why sometimes with a story maybe not matching up with continuity or kind of contradicting itself or contradicting continuity. If this was drawn by somebody maybe who wasn't drawing it in the standard DCAU style, and that's not to take away from anybody who's ever drawn this DCAU, but there are certain people who don't necessarily stick to that sort of standard Bruce Timm-esque drawings, and sort of kind of go off on their own in their own direction. So you could almost dismiss it if that's the case. If it's contradicting, it doesn't really look the same. But because this feels so familiar, because between the coloration and the artwork, I think everything together just roots this so firmly in the DCAU, which, for better or worse, leads to that, man, like why doesn't this feel like the DCAU sometimes,
Yeah, for sure. I think we're sort of coming to our end here. Yeah, it is worth just looking over. I mean, we haven't really mentioned anyone besides the main players here, but we do have Josh Reed as the letterer and Andrew Marino as the editor for these books. And I just definitely a hats off to the whole team. We've talked, and you can listen back on all the other bonus episodes. There's certainly things I could nitpick from a narrative standpoint, and we have. Would have liked to have seen a few more changes maybe to this version of Jason Todd to try to shoehorn in a third Robin that we just somehow never knew about. Feels a little forced in some ways. But that being said, it's still overall, like I said, if for no other reason than because of the art, but I also think I really liked their characterization of Azrael. I liked the idea of Deathstroke sort of trying to steal Batgirl and Robin away. And then in the end, despite it being a very similar take on the Death in the Family and Under the Hood storylines, I do think in these final two chapters, they did, from a narrative perspective, deviate enough that it left me feeling pretty satisfied as how that all played out. Like, you still had those elements of the Red Hood and trying to force Batman to kill and all that. But like I said, with the inclusion of Robin, with the third Robin, which I've always felt should have been, and maybe that's me being an unabashed Tim Drake super fan, but I've always felt like that character belonged more in that Red Hood story, because that to me is an element of that story that Jason, not only did he not mourn Jason properly in his eyes, but how long did he wait to replace him? 6 months, a week? Like, we don't really know exactly how much time between Robins there was this time. So I think directly involving Jason's successor in Tim Drake here also really enhanced it from a narrative perspective to me, because again, it not only made it a little bit more personal for Batman, but sort of seeing the way Jason's mind looked at it and looked at this next child who had sort of been, in his eyes, indoctrinated into the world of Batman, and then taking that kid and trying to use him against Batman to sort of get Batman to this level that Jason always thought he should be, even before he was apparently killed by the Joker. I think they, despite some missteps along the way, and certainly we'll leave it to our friends at the Watchtower database to figure out any and all plot holes along the way. But overall, I think they stuck the landing pretty well, especially with that little tease that we could get more down the line with Red Hood and Deathstroke teaming up.
Absolutely. That's what we're hoping for. And I guess we'll see what's to come in the new year when we get solicits, maybe for January, or maybe a proper announcement through one of the media channels that DC likes to do their formal announcements with, sort of how we learned about this comic last year. So we will see what else is to come. Let's hope for more regardless. I guess since we're sort of putting a cap on this, even though we do have one additional issue coming out in the next couple months here for December solicits. Liam, looking back, do you have a favorite issue of the series, or a favorite, if you want to break it down specifically into a chapter, you can do that, or of the storylines that were told here? I guess we really had three distinct stories that were ultimately told here, I guess.
Yeah, I really enjoyed what would be yes. Personally, I really enjoyed the Azrael issue. I guess that would be chapter 7 and 8 if you read it digitally. I really enjoyed that. I know that Nora Free's stuff had some controversy with some of the other DCAU fans and content creators, but one, not only was it our introduction to Mr. Wing, most importantly, but I really dug that take and sort of tying Azrael, Jean-Paul Valley into the backstory of Bruce Wayne, and this idea of this vengeful guy. I loved the art of those issues. Like I said, I liked the story. I liked this sort of more angry, violent version of Batman that Batman himself sort of deputizes and gives him this bat suit, and then immediately he nearly kills the Penguin and sets up this final confrontation with Mr. Freeze. And I really enjoyed that issue. Well, like I said, warts and all. If you don't like it because of the Nora stuff, I'm not going to argue with you. And I did like some of the changes they made to Jason's origin with the Red Hood and the Wolfgang, and sort of tying that more into his life as sort of a teenage hoodlum. I thought that was a lot of fun, and seeing all those flashback scenes where we got to see Scarecrow and Lock Up, and obviously Croc doing the floss dance from Fortnite. A lot of cool stuff. It's hard for me to pick just one moment or one chapter or issue that I liked, but I guess if you tried to nail me down, I would say probably either issues 4 or 5, just because I think visually that's some of the best stuff. The scene in the bar between the Red Hood and Batman, where they sort of come face to face for the first time, I think from a dialogue and from a visual standpoint is so incredible. So that one really sticks out for me. But what about you?
Yeah. I mean, if you've listened to our podcast before, you know that we tend to agree on a lot of stuff. So I would say that I think if for the sake of just disagreeing so that I can pick something differently, I will. I really did love the Darker Knight story, the introduction of Azrael, and certainly I think that whole scene where we first see that classic 90s Azrael suit, the bat suit, as he comes to that confrontation with Penguin. And again, we get Mr. Wing's introduction and all of that. Yeah, I just think that was just fantastically done. The artwork, the coloring, everything was great about that scene. That was probably my favorite visual. As far as stories are concerned, I really did like Mentors too, which, was the introduction of that Slade Deathstroke character that we talked about on that episode. That's such a interesting character, and one that you think back and you like definitely would have fit in that original Batman the Animated Series run, just because of the type of character he is, the adversarial nature of the character, the sort of being able to match Batman both physically and mentally in a way. And I think that character being a part of this universe feels so right. And the sort of the introduction to him into this universe, other than maybe the whole Firefly somewhat Firefly contradiction happening there. It didn't seem to upset anything, in that it makes sense that maybe this character could exist in the DCAU and that we hadn't heard about him or hadn't seen him because of the nature of the character.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. I mean, we talked about, again, you can go listen to that episode to hear our thoughts in full, but that Deathstroke design, it really feels like, and again, I think that's a lot of the classic models we're going through currently in our regular month of October. In our regular episodes, we're going through Justice League Unlimited, and so many of the characters we focused on, from the Question to Hawk and Dove, you take the sort of archetype classic designs from some of their earliest appearances and just adapt that into the DCAU style. And I think that was really on display with how Ty Templeton and Monica Kubina helped bring Deathstroke to life. It's very much that classic George Perez, Marv Wolfman era New Teen Titans Deathstroke, just sort of, beefed up and made into a DCAU version of that character. But it feels like such a classic, that's a definitive classic version of Deathstroke to me. And I'm so glad they went with that look. Obviously, he's had a few different looks and sort of more modernized, more militarized looks in the books more recently. So I love that we got just this, accept no substitutes, sort of classic how I picture Deathstroke when I think of the character, with the very bright and vibrant blue and orange color scheme and everything. So I love the look of Deathstroke in that book.
Perfect. All right, Liam, one last question for you, and then we will wrap up this week's bonus episode. And that is, if you were giving a recommendation, for this comic, would you go, 1 thumb up, 2 thumbs up, thumb down, 2 thumbs down, see it, skip it, wait for the trade paperback? What are Liam's thoughts overall on the series here in just like a very short tweetable blurb?
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts are basically, I had a lot of fun following along with this as it came out. And I think especially because we had the digital chapter split up. So I definitely say, again, even if it wasn't a perfect narrative the whole time, the art alone, plus again, just seeing the interesting ways that some of these characters were introduced to the world, that's a definite thumbs up for me. Especially if, like us, you grew up with these cartoons and some of the other tie-in books, and this holds a really special place. With, obviously, for us, we've done over 100 episodes of a podcast all about this universe, so it's very, very special and important to us. And I think just for that alone, just getting to spend a little more time in it, if you're a super fan like us, then it was absolutely worth it to follow along issue by issue, or digital chapter by digital chapter. So a definite thumbs up from me. What about you?
Yeah, I'd say it's a two thumbs up. I think if you haven't invested in the actual, the actual physical issues of these, do yourself a favor. We always talk about it here. If you have a little bit of expendable income, which obviously isn't a luxury that a lot of people have these days, so
Sure.
totally understand if you have to wait for it to come out on the trade paperback, but you're probably going to be able to get this for cheaper in digital form if you go out now, because these are 99 cents an issue, and there's what we said 14 chapters, so you're basically going to spend $14. So basically what you would have spent on a movie in the old days when movies were still a thing, and get yourself the entire collection here digitally. And then or if you want to wait until the trade paperback comes out, go support your local comic book store and get the trade paperback. That I don't believe that's been solicited yet. We're not sure when that could be due out. I would assume maybe first or second quarter in 2021. More than likely, but who knows? So if you don't want the spoiled, if you if you're listening to this, you already know what's happened. So get your hands on these, and certainly, because listening to the stories, you might be able to, okay, I figured out where this fits in. That's fine. But you're really missing out based on, like we said, the artwork, the highlight. Yeah. Go out and get your copy somehow, whether you're getting the actual physical issues, the digital issues, or waiting for the trade paperback. Get your hands on this.
Absolutely agree. I think anybody who's a fan of this world kind of owes it to themselves to don't just take our word for it, or don't just look around for other podcasts or YouTubers who like or don't like it. You owe it to yourself to at least give the first couple chapters a try. Like you said, obviously digital would probably be the cheaper version if you want to go on the individual issues, but give it a try. I believe the first issue is up now on the DC Universe app as part of Batman Day. They made a whole bunch of those comics available, even though they are, and I believe it was, at least for a time around Batman Day in September, was free on DC Comics website. So you may still be able to find at least a free sample of the first issue. So I think if you love these comics, which clearly, if you're listening to this or love this universe as much as we do, clearly you do. Owe it to yourself to read it yourself, make your own opinions, and then hey, tweet us or comment on our Instagram at DCAU Review, both places. Let us know what you think as well, because like I said, we love hearing from fans. Like I said, it was such a cool thing just to have a DCAU event to talk about this year, a brand new story to talk about. Was so much fun, and it was a lot of fun to follow along with. So definitely would love to hear what other people think as well.
I would agree. And Liam, I'm not someone that likes to lie, but I guess unfortunately I did lie here. I do have one additional question for you now that we are.
All right.
We are wrapping this up here. Now, something else that we can certainly tout, and another thing that we didn't actually talk too much about, I don't think, on these bonus episodes, were the multitude of different covers for these issues. Every issue seemed to have maybe 3 or 4 different variant covers done by, it seemed to be a who's who of artistry each time. We had quite the laundry list of artists here. Do you have a favorite cover from all of the variants, all of the issues here that you would pick as your favorite?
Wow, that is a tough question, but I think I do, and there's a lot of great ones. which again, we could be here all day listing all the great alternate covers. But I think my favorite would be one I went out of my way to purchase, that being the Warren Lowe. Apologies if I'm not saying that last name correctly, but the alternate cover for issue number 1. It was a reimagining of the classic Batman Adventures number 12, Batgirl, Harley Quinn, and Poison Ivy cover, sort of recreated with the old trade dressing and the old DC logo, with girl sort of spray painted over man. And we get Batgirl, The Adventures Continue number 1 with, as I said, with Harley and Ivy and Batgirl on the front of it. That one was, when I saw that, I just immediately thought, I need this. Like, this is such a great looking cover. And that one probably stands out as my personal favorite. But what about you?
Man, there are so many good ones, and I think honorable mention goes to Joe Quinones for his work on the Deathstroke cover for the issue number 3. That one is really, really, really good. I really love that one, but I think just edging it out, I think they saved the best for last, and that would be the cover done by Justin Erickson, also known as the Phantom City Creative cover for the issue number 7, which is just it's got the entire Bat family. It's got Batman, Batgirl, Robin, and Nightwing on the front, and Batman has his cape up and sort of spread, and they're standing in front of him, and it's highlighted in red and black alone, and it's just really, really great. And of course, the Phantom City Creative and Justin Erickson is responsible for a lot of those beautiful silkscreen posters that Mondo News has produced, and just recently released their own book, sort of collecting all of the posters he's done for the original Batman the Animated Series run. So he's very familiar with these characters, and certainly has certainly done a lot for keeping the Batman the Animated Series property alive and relevant over the last several years as they continue to release those posters. So
absolutely.
I think I'm going to have to give it to that one. It's just a stunning piece, and certainly I'm going to go out of my way to make sure that that's a part of my collection.
Definitely, yeah. It sort of invokes the new Batman Adventures logo.
Yeah, for sure.
That was on all of the toys and merchandise. Although this one actually also includes Batgirl. Although there was a variant, I think, that took out Nightwing and put Batgirl in, but most of the toys and stuff had Batman, Robin, and Nightwing on it. So it was cool to see all 3 of the sidekicks. And hey, that A cover for the final issue, the Becky Cloonan piece, where it's sort of the Red Hood surrounded by fire and Batman sort of rising out of the fire as well. Just some incredible stuff. Yeah, we could. That might be its own bonus episode down the line, where we just look at some of the great DCAU covers here. But yeah, there's some great stuff throughout all the issues, and again, that's not even getting into all of the crazy like the David Nakayama serial variants and some of that really creative stuff. A lot of people, you can tell how much love there is for these comics and these cartoons in the world of comics, and how so many creators who are doing amazing things now were inspired by them, and them getting to sort of make their mark on that style. It's really cool to see. So yeah, there's so many great covers we could talk about.
Absolutely. All right, Liam. Well, we will start to wrap things up here. I do want to say a formal thank you. So we know that, as we said at the beginning of the show, a best friend of the program, Monica Kubina, listens to our program. So we want to thank her for not only all the hard work that she put into this and making this so enjoyable, and certainly her kindness towards us and the podcast here has just been so great. So we want to thank her, and certainly Mr. Templeton. We publicly thanked them, and Paul Dini, and Alan Burnett doesn't have social media as far as I know. So
smart man.
Yeah. He is a wise man indeed. But in case we can somehow get the message out to him in some way, thank you to those guys. This has been a heck of a run here. And as we said, we hope that this is not goodbye, but we'll see you later. We know we have at least one more issue that we'll be able to cover in the not too distant future here, Liam, on a bonus episode. But yeah, this has been a lot of fun.
Absolutely, yeah. Like we said, with that ending being so no, for lack of a better term, open-ended, we certainly hope to see a direct follow-up to this story sometime in 2021. But regardless, it's just been so much fun to. I keep coming back to that phrase, but just to live in that world a little bit longer, and certainly as sort of a companion when we're reviewing the older episodes and things like that, to also have brand new DCAU or Batman content in this case. It's just so cool. And yeah, it's definitely it's amazing. I think it shows the legacy that this whole DC animated universe has, as that it's still relevant and still a viable property some 20 plus years after it originated in the original animated series. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and very excited to see what may or may not come next.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for tuning in and listening to this bonus episode. Don't forget, as Liam said, you can tweet us at DCAU Review. Give us your feedback and thoughts overall on your feelings about this entire series. Did you have a favorite issue, a favorite cover, maybe a favorite panel from this whole run here? Are you excited about the potential for more of this, or are you kind of just, because of some of the continuity, are you just kind of relieved that it's over? Send us all your feedback and all your thoughts at DCAU Review. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at DCAU Review for updates. We'll be posting more if there's variant covers. Of course, if there's any breaking DCAU news, we post it over there. So don't forget to check that out. Also, don't forget to subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app. That's Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and a lot of those ancillary ones. Also, don't forget to check out DCAUreview.com for the complete archives. Also, the link to our store where you can support the podcast if you like us. Buy yourself a t-shirt. We don't sell ads on this podcast, so that would let us know that you love us. And don't forget to leave us a 5-star review or any sort of review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, as it's called now. Liam, anything else to wrap us up here?
My last thought, and like I said, we definitely want some feedback for not only for our show, but for what we're reviewing, in this case, Batman: The Adventures Continue. I'm also curious where this series ranks in the Adventures tie-in hierarchy for people. Like if we go Batman Adventures Volume 1, Batman and Robin Adventures, Superman Adventures, Justice League Adventures, Batman Adventures Volume 2. Like where's this one fit in? Are you a big fan of the changes that were made? Does that drag it down your list for some people? I'd definitely love to hear where this ranks as far as some of the other tie-in material does for some people.
Man, I love that. Definitely. So send us your feedback. We'd love to hear that. Don't forget to check out, coming up this weekend, we have another episode on our standard DCAU review. We will be covering another episode of Justice League Unlimited. But until then, I'm Cal.
And I'm Liam.
And we will talk to you on the next episode of the DCAU Review.
Adios.